part of a series of webinars that Maria, myself and Gabriela are doing together, and we're hosting them via and through a Facebook group called Thriving Together, which is what we seek to kind of create in these webinars, and on the Facebook group. And so this webinar, we were really interested to explore the feelings of being unsettled and restless, and how understanding more about feelings and what they mean can help us live and act with greater freedom. So we'll be looking at that. So if you were interested in previous webinars and conversations and little clips, do, if you've not already, join the Facebook group and join the conversation over there as well. So by way of brief introduction to Zoom, for those who are not yet very familiar, we've got a fairly small group here actually, so we won't ask people to mute. I think we'll cope. But if you suddenly find yourself muted, we'll either let you know or unmute you. If you would like to speak and can't find the moment but would really like to say something, you can put up your little digital hand by going down to participants. Which one it is? Participants. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then if you
they change it.
I think it's changed.
All right. It's because
no, it's in participants, and at the bottom it says invite, mute me, or raise hand. I'm going to see.
See if it raises your hand, Gabriela.
I clicked it, nothing happened.
Yes.
Nothing happened.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
your hands. Yes, it did work. Maybe it's because you are a host, Katie. You and I are hosts, so we cannot see it.
Yes, that will be what's confusing me. I don't have that option. I just have the control of hosting. So yeah, please do you raise your little hand, and we'll see that. Or you can do it physically as well. As we're such a small group, we can actually see you all on one page. So that's perhaps the simpler way to do it. Yeah, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's lovely to have you here.
Katie, before you carry on, I want to say that I'm recording, and we will share this webinar on YouTube. So if there's something that you don't want to share, please don't share it. And also, I'm recording, so I won't be able to see everyone raising their hands. So Gabriela and Katie, you can see people are raising hands.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Thanks, Maria. Yeah, so I used the word the spaces we like to create, but we like them to feel relaxed and engaging, and to help people kind of delve into the conversation. We'll share a little bit from our perspective, and then we would really welcome your responses or your questions or anything you'd like to say at that point, once we've shared a little bit. So what we're going to share, for those who are not familiar with these types of conversations, is a relatively unknown understanding, or relatively unknown way of understanding feelings. So we're going to suggest that culturally and predominantly that we have some misunderstandings about what feelings are and what they mean, and these misunderstandings lead us to misattribute the source and the nature of feelings, and they can compound our feelings often and lead, in the case of feelings like being unsettled or restless, to a sense of being stuck in them and make our experience of life feel more difficult. And sometimes what we're sharing, well, before I say that, we'll just let Jez in. Hi, Jez. Welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. We're just in the introduction, so please pick up what you can. But if you're very confused, let us know as well. Welcome to the webinar. Hi, Jez. Yes, if you want to ask a question or you're confused, raise your hand. We can see you. So yeah, I was just sharing with everybody that in this webinar we're sharing what what sometimes can be referred to as a new paradigm, so a new understanding of feelings and what they need, and specifically we've been looking at that through the feelings of being unsettled and restless. And I suppose when we talk about a new paradigm, we're talking about a breakthrough, a new way of understanding, and there's been many of these throughout history, and when they become known, the old way of seeing things becomes redundant. And when we understand how something really works, and that's discovered and revealed, it opens up to humanity new possibilities. And what we're sharing is a new paradigm, and it has the potential to change everything, is how we see it. And we're suggesting that the discoveries of a man named Sydney Banks had one such breakthrough in his discoveries. That's what they represent, and we're going to share a little of our understanding of these. There's people on the call who have been around this understanding for a very long time, and including Gabriela, who knew Sid. And the ideas that we talk about might feel hard to grasp. They might sound complete nonsense, but we ask to remain curious and open to hearing something new. And the reason that they may sound very hard to grasp and or nonsensical is because they fly in the face of conventional thinking, as I was saying. And there's been other breakthroughs or paradigm shifts in the past where our understanding of something has completely changed what's possible, and almost and pretty much led to jumps in evolution of humanity. And one such discovery was the fact that the Earth was not actually flat. Now, it absolutely looks to me, when I look out my window to the horizon, that the Earth is flat. So it's a reasonable assumption that was made some time ago now that the Earth was flat. And as a result of that, there were all sorts of logical strategies and a lot of time and energy spent ensuring that people didn't fall off the edge of the Earth. And that made a lot of sense at that time. And it was subsequently discovered that the Earth is in fact a globe. And the discovery of that opened up an entire new world, pardon the pun, of possibility. And humans were then able to navigate the world differently. They were able to make new discoveries about this planet that we live on. And it made it unnecessary to tether ourselves to the Earth and not have to put have precautions and concern ourselves with the fact that we might fall off the Earth. So that's the extent to the profundity of what we're sharing, is that it really does offer a new understanding and a new way of experiencing life. So with those foundations laid, over to you, Gabriela.
Hi, Katie. Thank you. You know, when we were talking about the Earth, it was coming to mind one of the series that I got a little addicted to, which was Outlander. I don't know if you've heard Outlander on, well, I watch it on Netflix, but I guess it's on Stars too. And one of the characters is a doctor. And I guess back in the 1700s, people didn't know about germs. But she did, because she was traveling back from the future, you know, 17 something. And I remember, just as you were talking, I remember that one of the kids got sick because they did something, they inhaled something. And they assumed that he was getting sick because he had been trapped by evil. And so the strategy to help him was to pray for him and, you know, do an exorcism and all this stuff, right? And I just thought, wow, how profound, because everything was attributed to something else. So their strategy sometimes worked and sometimes it didn't. So it looked like, well, yeah, it must be that they were, you know, that the praying worked and all this stuff. So we're constantly in discovery in our world. And in psychology, I studied psychology. And in psychology, I remember clearly the strategy to help us with feelings. And the strategy was you have to dive into them, talk about them, discover, what's the source and the root of the problem. Excuse me. And then go for it. And there was one particular class that talked about abandonment, which can be unsettling if you feel abandoned. And I remember going into the class and not feel abandoned, and coming out of the class and completely feel abandoned, and just really spending time looking into that. And of course, the more time we spend diving into something and really thinking about it and analyzing and trying to figure it out, the more the feeling seems to grow. So from a traditional perspective, I think there has been many misunderstandings, because there is a misunderstanding that feelings mean something, and generally they mean something bad. And so even in the world, I think, of therapy or self-help or psychology, there is still, I think, many people that continuously are looking at talking about feelings and dissecting them and excuse me, analyzing them as a strategy to solve. Maria, could you? Oh, there you go. As a strategy to solve something. And personally, what I can tell you is that when that's the strategy, the feeling just grows more and more and more, And I think particularly when you're feeling unsettled and you don't know what feelings are, it just can send you into a rabbit hole. So I'm very, very excited personally to understand what feelings are, to know how to navigate through them. And I think one of the most common misunderstandings is the misunderstanding that Maria is going to be talking to us about, because I think it's just, it's almost universal. So we are shifting, in the conversation. It's like, it's a huge paradigm shift, because even when I was little, I was taught that certain feelings were not okay. Like if I started crying for, very good reasons, like if I got hurt or if I fell, my family, as a strategy to help me with very good intentions, was no, little girls like you don't cry. So very early on, I just started learning, like, okay, crying is not something acceptable, right? So one must not cry. And I remember, even as an adult, when my mother died, which is a perfectly, good response, right, to cry. I remember one of my aunts saying, no, I'm not going to talk to you if you cry. So in my family, there is this very strong, I don't know, what do we call it, habit, that that there's certain feelings, particularly sadness and crying, that are not good or acceptable. So one must really, strap themselves by their bootstraps and just kind of like move forward. And there are a tons of these misunderstandings about feelings. So we're just so excited to be sharing this one. And I'm particularly excited about what Maria is going to be sharing, because I think everybody can identify with that.
So the biggest misunderstanding I had is to think that my feelings were telling me something about the world, my circumstances, other people, even myself. And I have plenty of examples, and I was looking for an example of restless and unsettled, but I decided to go for this one instead, because I think it's very clear, or at least it's very clear to me. So what I've noticed for many years is that when I went into a low mood, say like I was premenstrual, I will have a habitual feeling of doubt. And what I used to think is that that feeling was telling me something about what was going on in my life. So for example, in my relationship with Katie, I will have doubts, and then I will attribute those feelings to Katie, right? It's something to do with Katie. If Katie was the right person for me to be with, I would not have doubts. And I used to spend a lot of time trying to get out of doubt by using doubt, right? So I was using my intellect to get out of doubt, and I was just digging a deeper and deeper hole for myself. Until one day I realized that my feelings of doubts were just an indication of the thinking, invisible thinking most of the time I was engaging in. And that realization, what helped me is that now I still have feelings of doubt, but I see that there's not any cheese indulging doubt. I say that, okay, I'm feeling doubt. I must be engaged in some doubtful thinking, which I cannot see. That's all that's happening, and I can be with that, and eventually it passes. So that's one common misunderstanding. In the same way that I used to think that rainy days made me sad, right? And then I saw actually I experience all sorts of feelings when it's raining. Sometimes I'm happy when it's raining. Sometimes I'm excited. And then looking back, I could see actually every relationship or date I've been with, I had doubtful thinking. So it was not Katie, right? It was coming from me. And then on a similar way, another thing that I used to misattribute, it was that, for example, when I was going into meetings, sometimes I will feel self-conscious, and I thought that those feelings were telling me something about the type of person I was. Like I'm a self-conscious person, I'm an introverted person, I'm insecure, and that informed what I could or not do in the world, right? That in some way you could say that it would limit me because I thought the feelings were telling me something about who I was. But then looking more closely into it, I realized, how can those feelings tell anything about who I am? Or how can my feelings and my thinking be who I am if that's constantly changing, right? Like how can the clouds that are constantly changing be the sky? That's not who I am, right? Who I am is the sky, right? That holds all those all that thinking and feeling that is constantly changing. So what I'm trying to point to is that our feelings are not coming from other people or circumstances or what's happening in our life, and they are not telling us anything about who we are or what's going on. So for some people this might sound obvious, but for me it was very huge to realize 100% of my feeling or my experience is created from thought in the moment, is created from the inside out. And that's huge, because then I can choose to be in a rainy city and not be affected by it, right? And I can be here and feel self-conscious and still show up, right? So that to me, well, that changed my life in ways that I cannot even begin to explain. But yeah, does that make sense to you? Does that resonate?
So how many of you have thought that the way at one point in your life, and maybe even recently, even for those of us that have been around the principles for a long time, right? How many of you have experienced a feeling and it looks to you like it's coming from somebody else? Yeah. Come on, Linda. I know where to go with you. Right? Linda, can I tell a story about you? Yeah, okay. So Linda and I are buddies. She's like, I'm not too sure. Linda and I have been buddies for a long time. Oh my God, like 24 years, right? So obviously we work together and we're friends, you know, and we've gone hiking together and we've been teaching this for a long time. And this has been really helpful. And sometimes we would go to meetings where things wouldn't go well, right? And we would both come to the office frustrated, wouldn't we, Linda? And we would go like, God, those damn people, they just don't understand, right? They don't understand how important this is. And what was really funny is that we were talking about the fact that our feelings came from inside of us. And yet, after those meetings, right, where things didn't quite go so well, it looked to me like we attributed our frustration to them, right? It is them. It is the circumstances. It is Bruce. It is Bruce. Remember Bruce? It's Bruce that is, you know, getting us so pissed off. Do you remember? So I'm just saying this to you because what Maria has just said, that 100% of the time, every single feeling is created inside of you. It can be liberating, freeing, and humbling. Because, you know, when you experience, let's just say, discomfort, and you start kind of getting a little bit of like, wow, this is created inside of me. It kind of, it takes away the blame of you are making me feel pissed off, right? Because deep inside of us, there's this sense of, well, we know that's not quite true. In the same way that the earth was not flat, in the same way that germs were actually creating illness and it was not the possession of evil. Now, like Katie just said, if you look out in the, you know, the horizon, the earth looks kind of flat. So what we're suggesting is, we're not suggesting that you should not get upset or unsettled or angry or any of that. We're just suggesting that the birth of feelings is in us and not in people. And one of the greatest benefits when this starts happening is that you realize that you're not at the mercy of situations to be well or people. And so this time where we have been together at home, all over the world, right, when we have been removed, has been such a great time to notice that we can be at home sometimes and feel completely settled and relaxed, right, and rested. And sometimes we're at home and we start feeling a little bit unsettled. And so just kind of play with the idea of, if our feelings come from us, right, that means that we don't have to be afraid of life, right? And if meanings don't mean anything about us, because that's not who we are, right, that we're something more than that, we can see them kind of come and go like a breeze. And even though you may know this, there will be times where you still are going to look at people and you're like, no, you are pissing me off, right? From a line, you're like, no. I mean, later on, you might like, okay. But in the moment, you might look at politicians, for example, and this gets created so quickly in your mind, and you feel it so immediately in your body that it really truly appears like it is the politician or your neighbor, right? Or Bruce, Linda, for us. So anyway, okay. I would love to see how this is resonating for you. So you're welcome to unmute yourself and just tell us.
I think Linda has her little digital hand up. Thanks, Linda.
Oh.
That's a new for me. I didn't know about the hand. That's cool. I like the hand. But Gabriela, it was the candy. It wasn't thought. But we also did a number of workshops. I mean, how many times do we keep having to learn this lesson, right? We're human beings. We go there. We do this. But we did a workshop called, "If You Would Change, I Would Feel So Much Better."
Yeah.
But I always say what this does, because you still go there every day, moment, how many times a day, is it just, reduces the recovery time.
Mm. Yeah.
And I'm so thankful I'm doing it to myself, because if somebody else was out there doing it, we'd be so screwed.
Thanks, Linda. Suzanne, your hand is up.
Yes, well, this is such a perfect subject for a pandemic, because we've all been plunked in the situation where we are forced to be, we can't outrun unsettled and restless. We can't run to the coffee shop. We can't run to the store. We can't run to visit with friends. There's no diversion from what I think Buddhists might call cool or hot boredom. We're in it. We're completely in it. And for me, so what has actually become the most important question for this time period, because I come up against my thinking and I have to meet it. I don't have to do anything with it, but I have to recognize that it's there. I have to recognize what it's doing. And then I go, okay, and so what? It doesn't mean anything. Now, it doesn't mean that I then rush to do the thing that I'd been procrastinating about that was causing this sensation, or allegedly causing this sensation. But it does mean that it doesn't steal my peace. It really doesn't steal my peace. I can turn to an alternate activity, because I'm still thinking about whatever task and I'm still not doing it. But I can turn to that alternate activity and give it my full attention, my full joy, and just be completely in it. And this is the gift of so what? The fact that you can really live each moment. Anyway, that's what occurred to me.
That's so beautiful. I love the idea of peace of mind, Suzanne. I love the idea of, I can feel unsettled, I can feel a little off, and I can also hold peace of mind in my heart. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Anybody else? Caroline, are you going to say something, girl?
I love the so what. It's just having, for me, it's not having any expectations. That's like at first with the pandemic, there was I just found there was a lot of noise out there. Whereas it's almost, I don't know, I'm not even thinking about it. I think because the times that I have actually thought about it, it just seems crazy that this invisible thing we can't see has stopped everything globally. So I think for me, during this pandemic, the whole thing, and I've had some, it's been a real journey for me, this pandemic. I've had 3 bereavements, including my parents. One of my businesses, I'm just quite happy to let it go now. That was my main trade, estate agency. The relationship that's deepened with my son, and there's just been so much, and I know there's this whole bunch of thinking there that I can get involved in, but it doesn't make sense to do that, and it just seems so crazy, this thing here. And I think for me, the whole thing is just to be present and be aware that it is thought, and be able to step back and to know that I've got that I understand this gift, that I can just step back and I don't have to get involved in that box of thinking. That alone has been gold for me throughout the whole of this, 110%. And it's like, even friends I speak to, and they're like, Jesus, you know, kind of like, look at everything that's kind of happened to you throughout this in just really 2 months. And I said, I know. And I was just actually really grateful that I'd got rid of all those layers of like anger and pain from growing up. I was just grateful that this understanding helped me see that differently. And then came across this, and I'm like, wow. And I said, and there's another group, you know what, if Carlsberg could make this and put this in a bottle and just hand this out to everyone, you know, it would just be awesome. But and I love as well groups like this where, like, in this space, it's just kind of chilled, and it's lovely to see how it's showing up for everyone. I just love that, really do love that. So, but that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So, yeah.
And were you going to say? Were you going to say something else?
I think I've been restless at all. I don't know where the hours go. It just, I've not been bored at all, and I've actually done next to nothing. But the days just come and go, and like for me, I'm looking a lot in the direction about being present. As such, you know, I went out for a walk with one of my friends and the dogs a couple of weeks ago. Came back, we'd been out for 3.25 hours. I was like, really? I thought it might have been an hour or so. You know, I couldn't believe that I'd actually gone out walking for 3.25 hours. That's just not me. But yeah, it just seems that, you know, being in real time, that just goes so quickly. Yeah.
You know, and it's also fascinating to listen to people talk about their experience during this time, because people have different experiences with the pandemic, you know. And so even you have a different experience, I mean, day to day, right, hour to hour. So then that lets you kind of like start discovering, oh, wait a second. So this feeling that I have this moment cannot be a gift of the pandemic, right? Even peace of mind. So thank you. All right, anybody else would like to share what's making sense to them, what's not making sense to them? Any questions? Okay. Katie, do you want to move forward? Do you want to take us to our next destination here?
Yeah, let's see where we go. So I was reflecting on unsettled and restless and what that looks like to me, like if I tried to bottle that feeling. And it's this sense for me of like impending doom and lots of spinning plates and things that I've got to attend to, and an inability, like this sense that if I'm doing one thing, I have many, many other things to do, and that I can't stay still. So there's a lot of doing attached to my feelings of unsettled and restless. And looking more closely at that, I saw that how, generally speaking as well, when we misunderstand where our feelings are coming from, so we think they're coming from something outside of us, so the multitude of things I might need to do, for example, or then I can, just like if I thought the world was flat, I would do things to stay tethered to the earth and not fall off the edge of it. If I think the things outside of me are causing me to feel unsettled, then I will do things to make myself feel better. I'll rearrange things. Actually often even though the feeling I'm having is that there's things that need tending to, and I'm a bit overwhelmed by that, and so I'm completely unsettled and restless, I would often try and distract myself or use a strategy that I think would help. Like I would, I've done all of these through, and many more, I'm sure, throughout lockdown. I'll meditate, or I'll go for a walk, or I'll have a beer. And all of them seem to really help, because it seems like, I've diverted my attention away from my unsettled and my restlessness. But what I'm misunderstanding is that I think in doing those things and not having my attention on all of the stuff I have to do, I've solved the problem of my restlessness, when actually, and then I might get attached to those strategies that might also include diving in and trying to do a load of things as the means by which to make myself feel better. So it really looks like I've got to do something. So I've learned to react in certain ways to certain feelings. So if I'm feeling unsettled and restless, I've learned to go for a walk, to have a beer, to meditate, to get stuck in and try and get through loads of work, be very productive. And it may look like those things work, but there's a fundamental misunderstanding, and I can see that I sometimes become attached to those activities as the means by which I'm no longer unsettled and restless. And in fact, when I look a bit more closely at that, and I question the validity of the earth being flat, I question the validity of my feelings coming from the circumstances of my busyness, I see that beyond that, beyond the feelings that I'm having and the solutions that I may cling to, is the possibility that it's all made of something transient, like clouds, as Maria said, that pass in the moment. And that if that's true, beyond that is a peace of mind, a calmness, a presence, as Caroline said, where 3 3/4, was it? 3 3/3 hours feels like 1.
Yeah.
And it's peaceful. And knowing that that's my true nature and my default means that I can still go for a walk and meditate and have a beer and get stuck in and try and do stuff. But I'm not reliant on those for my well-being. And it's not such a problem that I'm unsettled and restless, because I know it will pass. So I don't have to have a habit of trying to fix the uncomfortable feelings. And it's really helpful. It's really helpful when I see that.
Susan, you have your hand up?
Sorry, yeah. So
I do. I didn't want to interrupt Katie's flow, but I wasn't sure if she was finished, but I did want to build on it, because it's sort of what I was talking about before, except I didn't express it anywhere near as eloquently. But there's an added invitation, I think, with this. So you were describing the seeing of the fact that there is no correlation between any of these tasks done or not done and how you feel about them, and whether you're restless or not. But I've found that in this time, when really there's nowhere to run, in essence, from our mind, that restlessness is a wonderful cue to just take a step back into the observer position. Mm. And it's actually a gift to have to wear glasses, because they are, for me, a reminder that this is a separate reality that doesn't have anything to do with the essence of who I am. Mm-hmm. And actually, I can't see much without them anyway. But just having the world framed this way is a wonderful reminder just to take the step back into the observer position, the observer who isn't perturbed by any of this and who doesn't care about any of it. I mean, to my higher self, or to however you want to describe one's core being, that entity doesn't care whether I clean the house, do the dishes, do my tax returns, or make lace instead. It doesn't care. It doesn't care about any of it. It doesn't care whether I'm agitated about it. It just is. And that is, it's in that space that this wonderful peace is always available, just taking that one step back. At least that's my experience.
Well said, Suzanne. So the difference between when I'm feeling something uncomfortable, I love how you said that. It's an invitation to step back and get into your observer. Is that how you said it? The observer position, right? Versus it means something, I have to do something about it. Clearly, I haven't gotten over this. It's so different. It's so different when you understand that it can just be like a tap on the shoulder or an invitation to, okay, just remember, right now it's just time to observe. Right? I mean, it's just completely different. And what happens is, as we step back and we get into the observer, as you're calling it, sometimes almost instantaneously, the feelings dissipate. Sometimes you can still feel the discomfort and the intensity, but there is kind of like a blanket of distance and almost vaccination or something, you know? You can still feel pretty intense, but there is not that reactivity and urgency. And sometimes you will step into it and then you get sucked right back into it, right? Like observer, pissed off, right? Now I'm really upset and unsettled. And you caused this, right? And then, like Linda was saying, and then we recover. And it seems like as you understand this, your recovery is just a little shorter.
Oh, and in case anyone's getting the impression that I think I'm on the fast track to enlightenment, one of my favorite opening phrases for an argument is, I know it's just my thinking, but you.
But you piss me off. That's funny. Yeah, okay. I was going to use an example of what happened at a reunion yesterday about my husband. I usually use my husband in this because, you know, he's not here, so I can use it. But I'm going to use it anyway. So he's reading the Tao, right? He's reading the Tao. And he reads something like, it is understanding, Tao is understanding that there's no attachment. There's no attachment to, like, you know, one thought or the other, you know, and he paused and he goes, wow, you know, that's just so deep, you know, like all thoughts are the same and all opinions are the same, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think in the moment he was really seeing that. Fast forward, my husband is now close to Sherwood's husband because we're neighbors. And they start talking about politics, right? And within a second, I look at him and go, what happened? What happened? Now he's really pissed off about his opinions, right? Sherwood and I are trying to have a conversation. My husband's kind of loud and he gets like, you know, he has a very strong opinion about things and he's like, rah, 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 rah. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense, honey. But he is drowning in his feeling. Right, Sherwood, we're like totally distracted. And so it's fascinating to see that one moment we can see something beautiful, and in the next moment, you know, he's kind of, not him only, but, you know, everyone can really we can lose our bearings. And that even if that happens, you know, because I was kind of looking at them carefully. I mean, I was so distracted because there was like a little positional conversation, right? And I'm like, oh, for crying out loud, we're just trying to have a good time. How did we get into this, right? And I was just about to intervene or say something, right? I'm like, okay, hold on. And then I noticed that they kind of got out of whatever. My husband got out of whatever. And then he went back to who he is. And they actually have kind of like this really cute friendship, even though they think very differently. And I think that's the other important thing to remember about this. When we see our loved ones being unsettled or restless, for some of us, it's a habit to run and rescue because we don't like to see them struggle, right? We don't like to see people unsettled that we love. I mean, I felt actually quite uncomfortable when he was, you know, going at it. And so it's just so nice to remember that when our loved ones are unsettled, nothing is really truly happening to them. They're just experiencing a moment. And it doesn't mean anything about them. Right? They continue to be the lovely person that they are, in spite of their current mood or their current state of being. This is, I think it just, it promotes a trust in the essence of who we are as people, who our friends are, who our family is, even if they're struggling. And if we can just get present with them, like Carolyn was saying, and just be with them, if you can hold yourself from being helpful, you know, or setting up this, you know, the scene straight, or, you know, teaching them anything, if you can just see beyond this feelings of unsettlement or anger or whatever, that can be very helpful. So there's a part for us to see, right? And then there's a part for us to see about our loved ones too, and the people that we are around.
So we have 3 raised hands.
Yay!
Hey, so Linda, yours has been raised for some time. Do go ahead.
Thanks. I mean, I am always amazed at the perfection of this all. That this creation that we're experiencing, thought, feelings, perfect creation. Because the first experience I have, when as thought creates my experience, is the feeling. That's the first thing that comes is the feeling, and it's the truth. And then after that, if I create more thinking and I'm trying to lie about the truth of it, it won't change until I acknowledge it. And so it's our perfect guide. If we didn't see the world, or the words rather, and all we experienced were the feelings, we could navigate through the woods blind by just following the feeling. If we start going right and the feeling is not there, then we just go a little left. And we could follow through a woods of tangled trees and no paths. We could do cross country, if you would, by following our feelings, if nothing else, without a map, because that is true. And even if it's the bad feelings, that's just where we are. That is the truth of what my thinking is. And in all the work that we've done, Gab, we deal with people, and it's like so many of them, they're trying to run away from feelings. It's bad. They're looking for relief, right? Substance abuse and all that. It's like, I want to numb out. And the exact opposite is, no, they're just telling you where you are. And don't be afraid of it. But if you don't know the thought feeling connection, then you think it's going to be there forever, and you think it's them and those and that out there, and I can't get away from it, right? But once you start seeing, oh, it's me doing it to myself, and I'm making it up, and I do have a power to my thoughts flow. And then it's like, okay, so it's never going to last forever. Yeah, that's our experience. It doesn't last forever. So it's not like we should try to get away from them. My experience has always been now, after, years of this, 1996, Gabriela, is, for me, this works for me, is to step into it. If I find myself starting to kind of fall into a low mood, it's sort of like, oh, whoa, what's going on there? And then I almost physically step into it. It's like, what's going on there? But that immediate observation of course, has already taken me out of it, right? Because I'm now having different thinking about it. But, last night I talked to a dear friend of ours, and she just experienced probably her worst fear, to have lost her son and grandson just recently, right together. And she was really broken up. And this is a woman who was my teacher. And I always saw her as, and she's this amazing woman.
Strong.
But she was being consumed by grief. And my thinking was, I can't go there with her. I don't want to empathize, that I can't relate. I'm not going to say that. But just to look past that and to look at who she is, who I know her to be. And not to give her platitudes or, anything like that, but just try to be So what I had to do was to keep myself grounded and to stay secure and not get thrown, not get insecure with seeing this woman who I always looked up to and thought was, you know, kind of the rock, not to be insecure with that. And that's all I can do. And then after that, you know, it's what she or anybody else in our life is going to do. But we've always talked about that tuning fork effect, right? When you are grounded, when you are secure, when you're not in fear, people, they look at that and they know, okay, that is a possibility, that exists, that I feel better with that, even though they think it's like me doing it. But initially, you know, that's helpful. So, you know, for me, God, I don't know where I would be with things that have happened in my life without this understanding. It's like, oh, thank goodness for what I've learned, and how have I been so blessed to know this to help me navigate through life to where I am now, and then through all of this that's going on now. But feelings, yeah, man, you could have a blindfold on. You don't need to see. You just need to be in touch with that.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Who else do we have their hand up?
So yeah, probably finally Promala.
It's Promala.
Join us.
We can't hear you yet, honey.
Okay. You've all spoken so eloquently about all this, and now I don't know where I'm going. But what this has given me is the notice in the moment. And for instance, something happened yesterday, big time, day before, big time. I blew my top, big time. It wasn't my fault.
I blew my top. I know it's not, but it was somebody else's.
What happened was I'm going at it, and I could, knowing all this brought me back to my feeling. And all of a sudden I said, okay, you teach this. How are you feeling? For some reason, at that moment, I felt as if I needed to go there, just keep blowing to make my point, because otherwise my point won't be made. But consciously, I said it to myself, but you're okay underneath. Don't let this, don't go into the rabbit hole with the feelings of what you're doing. But what you're doing, it's okay for the moment. Do you see the 3 different places that I'm at in the same moment? I can do what I'm doing. Don't go down the rabbit hole, but I'm okay right now. I'm okay no matter what. Those 3 came together for me, which was really nice. And it brought so much clarity for me. I mean, obviously I was going on, but an hour later, after, you know, I mean, this only goes on for a few minutes. Hour later, it brought so much clarity to me as to how I'm going to handle this. And that I thought was fantastic. Really, really great. And we're going to talk about it today. Yeah.
You know what I loved about what you shared is that you did not feel guilty, that you did not feel upset that you didn't feel restless about it. You're like, you know what, this is what's happening. This is what's happening in this moment. I'm not going to take it seriously and I'm okay. Because I think there's so many of us that get very restless about how we react, how we have, you know, I don't know, how we are, maybe we get angry or whatever, right? And so giving you that space and that grace, of, you know, this is kind of, yeah, I'm pissed off right now in this moment. I think that's, you know, it's just nice. It's nice to feel free with yourself and how you've acted. I mean, that doesn't mean that, you know, you have to go and, you know, be aggressive with people. That's not what I'm saying, right? And I'm not saying that we purposely are not careful. That's not what I'm saying either. But when we, you know, when we have those moments, to have grace with ourselves and that space of, I don't know, gentleness, that by itself is a gift. And then to have clarity.
Yeah.
Because I think often what takes our clarity away is all the judgment that we have. So good for you, Pramila. Katie, anybody else has their hand up?
No, nobody with their hand up, and probably just closing remarks now. If anybody does want to say anything to bring this conversation to a close, yeah, that would be lovely.
I think Angel should do it.
Ah.
It's just like, look, I'm muted and my camera is off for a reason. You know, there's another person here that has been teaching over a long time. Desiree, I know that you're muted. You probably can hear, but thank you for being with us. And my God, Desiree also has been taught from like the early 2000s, probably a long time. And so thank you for being here, Desiree, too. Okay, Maria, well, should we close?
Yes, so thank you everyone that joined, and we will be sending the recording, as some of you had to leave earlier, and we will put in the mess on the chat that if we were going to do that. Yes, we're going to do that. Well, it was really great to hear from all of you. That's what I love about these calls, that I feel that we learn from the contributions of everyone, or everyone that gets to talk. And it's really lovely to be able to do that exploration in a safe space. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Anything else that you or Katie want to add?
Just to reiterate, yeah, the thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
The only thing that maybe we need to do we know still if we're going to have one next in June, or are we taking a little vacation in June, or we don't know yet?
Yeah, that's true. Katie?
Okay, that we might skip June because of technical situations, but we will let you know on Writing Together.
Yes. So to that point, Gabriela, we might not do webinars in June, but we will be engaging in the Facebook group. So if you want to join, or if you're not still there, do that. Well, have a lovely day and week, and yeah, see you soon. Thank you.